If I had anything to say about what attracts me to design and the design community, it's like a fundamental optimism. I really believe, relative to, say, following congressional politics, design is immensely inspiring. At best, people in the design community are trying to create something with beauty or create something that solves problems, solves global problems. It's a community that by definition is committed to the future. And I think who more than that, who personifies that to the most absolutely sort of mad, awesome, extreme degree, but Elon Musk. So, and to boot, he has a really good sense of humour that I think has been fueled by years of watching Monty Python films.
That may appeal to some, everyone, but
you think it should be fun?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I sometimes try to be funny. It's sometimes not successful. In that way, I differ from Monty Python.
Well, we'll hope to hear about that in a few minutes. So I just want to lay out how we're going to spend this tight 40 minutes. He and I will talk for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to hand it over to the floor. He's really on deadline, but he's ready to take questions. And I have already advised him that I'm not going to do the stick and flat type car nerdy questions. So those of you in the audience that have got that car nerdy question, just hold on to it for 20 minutes and he'll be here to answer it. We're going to do more of what Jennifer just described, which is, we're interested in culture, we're interested in ideas, we're interested in people who are making a mark. And so that's where we're going to go, I think, with this conversation. And just as a sort of quick kind of summary of your life in 2 seconds. She started in South Africa, Pretoria, came to America via Canada, studied business and physics, wound up in Silicon Valley, did extremely well by most people's, by comparison with most people, and then chose to invest some of the proceeds in 2 industries that you had no prior experience in, the auto industry and space, rockets. And you're doing pretty well with those industries. And the Tesla Model S, which is right here, won Car of the Year last year for numerous accolades. He's got this gig with NASA where you now send cargo out to space, and it's all seems to be going well. There's been some challenges along the way, but one of your favourite tunes, I understand, is Always Look on the Bright Side. So anyway.
They are being crucified.
That was life fun.
Right.
So anyway, now, enough from me, we're going to hand it over to you, but just do start by telling us what attracted you, after being in this digital realm, to 2 industries that really sort of had their heyday in America kind of 50 years ago.
Sure. Well, I think some people may know this already, but the reason for SpaceX and Tesla, they're not really directly related, except that I think that they're trying to solve problems of importance. One is, in the case of Tesla, sustainable transport. I think we're making enough progress with electric cars, and something needs to be done on that front. And then on SpaceX, I just think in order for us to have an exciting future, or one that you feel inspired about, at least in my case, and therefore for many people, having a future where we're a spacefaring civilization is an inspiring and exciting one. And whereas I think it's kind of sad and depressing if we have a future where we're forever confined to it. But I do want to be clear that I'm optimistic about the future of Earth. It's not as though, because I think we should aspire to become a multi-planet civilization. Because sometimes people think, well, things are going to be so messed up on Earth that we'll have to move to another planet. So, well, no, that would still be a single-planet civilization, just on another planet. We wouldn't be a multi-planet civilization out there, and have the things that we see in science fiction movies and read in books, at least the non-dystopian ones, come true. We want that future to be something that becomes real eventually, not something that is forever fiction. That's really what SpaceX is about on that front. And then, like I said, for Tesla, it's about hastening the transition to sustainable transport. Yeah, so far so good. Things are going pretty well. I think The Tesla team is working incredibly hard right now. They always work pretty hard, but this is a particularly, I think we're really putting in extra effort right now, and I think it's showing. We're actually, I'm happy to say we're delivering now about 500 cars a week.
Wow.
So, yeah. Well, they're probably getting their car pretty soon if they haven't gotten it already. We're trying to get the wait time down for cars, and so I think that's we're making good progress on that front. And then we'll start shipping cars to Europe, and we'll put them on a boat in June, and then they'll get to Europe in July. So that should be good. I think we'll generate significant export earnings. We expect probably get close to half of our volume, maybe 40% will go to Europe, and then we'll start shipping to Asia as well later this year. It's made in California, right? They're literally made from raw metal and plastic up in California.
What a place! And one of the things that's really interesting is why California? Why not Detroit? Why did you choose to build the industry in this state? Is it because there's an electric car industry here, or is it like
No, there wasn't. Well, no, it's just because the main reason for California, for manufacturing in California, was that I really want to be able to be in the factory, and if the factory is somewhere else, then it's going to be very difficult for me to be there. So it's, and I really want the senior team to be in the factory. I think it makes a big difference if you're out on the factory floor, and you can have a good feedback loop between engineering and production. So if you see problems developing, you can take action very quickly. You can find ways to innovate on manufacturing itself. Because a lot of people think manufacturing is just about like making copies or something, and it's really easy, and it's not. It's really difficult, and it really lends itself to innovation. So manufacturing is it's the machine that builds the machine, and just as there's innovation in the machine itself, there is innovation in the machine that builds the machine. But if you just sort of try to outsource that around the world, I think you lose the ability to innovate as much on the manufacturing process.
Can you give an example of the kind of innovation that you've made in manufacturing?
Yeah, absolutely. There's quite a few. So let's take the motor, for example. And in fact, we didn't start out this way. I should say we started out with thinking that we would outsource most of the manufacturing. And there's certain areas where outsourcing does make sense. Like you can say the electronics of the car. For us to create an electronics fab would make sense because there's such good outsourcing in that arena. But for the motor, that motor is only about 14 inches in diameter. It's capable of producing 450 plus horsepower, and you can pick it up. So if you do the physics of it, you can say, okay, of course you can make such a motor. You can just do the basic electromagnetic theory. But so then way back when we first started out, we said, okay, we went to companies that make electric motors and say, hey, we just need to make a motor with these specifications. And they said, well, no, you can't make such a motor. We're like, well, in fact, they said you couldn't even design such a motor. And so then we designed the motor for them. And then they said, well, we have no idea how you could manufacture such a motor because like none of the machines that we have to make that motor. And then we designed a machine that could make the motor, and then we just made it. So they're like, okay, well, we could teach someone else how to make this motor, but then they didn't seem to be able, they didn't seem as though they could actually make it better than we could, so we just decided to keep making it. And then the drive inverter also has to process that amount of current. I mean, it's an enormous amount of current that's going through that inverter. And if you were to see what, say, a 400 kilowatt inverter looks like normally, I mean, it's the size of a small refrigerator. And ours fits in that little section just to the right of the motor, like a soldier section. That's the drive inverter. And then the gearbox is in the middle. We only need one. It's really an RPM reducer with a differential. It doesn't really need it doesn't need like a clutch and multiple gears, that kind of thing. So it just goes all the way to like 16,000 RPM. And so that's the entire powertrain, just right there. And it's just in line with the rear axle. And I mean, there's nothing like it in the world. I mean, it's probably the best outside of a laboratory or something like that. Yeah, again, so that's those are, I think, some key examples.
And then in the SpaceX, there's this. I said we were going to be doing the big ideas, but I was very interested to read about the cost valuations and the amount of cost that's built in typically to the construction of a rocket, and that's something that we've really tried to cut away at.
Yeah, so with SpaceX on the rocket side, it's very important for us to advance the technology because, or to innovate on technology, because if we didn't do that, then we would just be completely thrashed by China or Russia, because they would look much lower labor costs there. But you have to sort of distill, what does technology mean in terms of the fundamental variables or parameters? And for a transport function like a rocket, you can really, all rockets go about the same speed, which is really super fast. So it's like the minimum velocity to reach orbit is 25 times the speed of sound. It just as a reference point, obviously there's no sound in that kind of thing. But it's about, and maybe another way to think of it is a very fast bullet, like a bullet from an assault rifle, goes about Mach 2, or twice the speed of sound. So the rocket's going 12 times faster than a bullet from an assault rifle in order to reach orbit. That's what I mean by really fast. So the cars are not that fast by comparison. Yeah, so they all go about the same speed, and you're generally not competing on the basis of aesthetics or design for a rocket. Although I still think we kind of neglect that completely, but it's less of a decision for people. So really, it's coming down to reliability and cost. So any given technological innovation must include those two items, or it's somewhat relevant as a technological innovation. So we've done a lot of that at SpaceX, and we manufacture the rocket actually right here in LA County. In fact, literally 5 minutes away from LAX, we make giant rockets. Most people are really surprised by that. And yeah, Hawthorne, which is birthplace of Marilyn Monroe.
And lots of very young, enthusiastic rocket scientists. So in a way, a sort of a new generation is getting excited about rockets. Now, obviously the Tesla is moving towards being as clean as possible. And rockets really, in that sense, they're not clean fuel. Is there any way that some of the innovations that you're making energy-wise might ever transfer into rockets?
That's unlikely. I actually think that every mode of transport will become fully electric, with the ironic exception of rockets, which I work on. With rockets, you have to sort of expel mass. Like there's basically no way around Newton's third law. You have to expel mass, even if you have something like the space elevator, which I think there's some really big question marks around its viability. Even once you get to the tip of a space elevator, you need a rocket. So you really have to have something that can expel matter, or in the limit, expel really vast amounts of light. But I do think there are ways to have sustainable fuel production. So right now we use high purity, a special form of high purity jet fuel. So it's like jet fuel with much of contaminants removed, and then it's roughly 2/3 oxygen production and 1/3 fuel. And in fact, there's a lot of what people realize, like when rockets take off, most of that rocket's mass is oxygen, because once you get out of the atmosphere, you got to bring it with you. But I think with our next generation rocket, we're going to transition to methane as the fuel, and we can actually manufacture methane just using solar energy, water, and carbon dioxide. You can actually create methane and ethanol. So, although plenty of oxygen, obviously, but helpful on Mars. So once you get to Mars, you have to replenish the propellant. So Mars is a carbon dioxide atmosphere, and it has water ice in the soil. So that's an important element for returning from Mars and replenishing propellant.
Now you've thought about a lot of transportation methods. We've got the car, we've got the rocket. You've been talking a lot about this thing called the Hyperloop. I think probably for many of us who can't whiz along the highway in a Model S or get onto a private rocket, and jet up into the sky, many of us are sort of dealing with a much more quotidian transportation problem, which is sort of getting from Santa Monica to Brentwood in under an hour.
I drive the 405 almost every day. It's a real drag.
Do you think about that? Do you think about LA traffic, like what's right in front of your nose? And how would you solve it? Like, have you got a sideline in jetpacks?
I do think there's a solution, and I have had plenty of time to contemplate it when I'm stuck in traffic in 405.
What is it? So you'd like to know if there's a technological fix.
So the local solution is actually is going to sound slightly mundane, but it's to double decker the freeway with prefabricated metal sections that don't disrupt the existing traffic flow and are resistant to earthquakes more so than any bridge or structure in the country, in the city. So I've literally got a design that would do that really efficiently, but I got to focus on Tesla and SpaceX.
But that double decker freeway, that appeals to a sense of aesthetics, because clearly
we would make it look nice. Honestly, I think we make it look really, really great. I mean, people did not put enough effort into making bridges and overpasses, and in general, freeways. There's complete neglect of aesthetics, which is horrible. I mean, I think we've got one of the. Right now, the 405 is one of the ugliest freeways. I mean,
and they've expanded it.
I know. I mean, I'm sort of hoping that there's some plan to improve the surface aesthetics as the final step. I really hope that's in there somewhere, because it looks. I mean, there's better freeways in like countries that are far further than we are. And I just think it's kind of a shame that we have such poor freeways in Los Angeles, being a car-based city as we are. But I kind of like cars, obviously. So it's not I'm kind of pro-car. But I think we just need to have better freeways.
It seems like the freeways in LA were engineered, and that's where it started and stopped. In terms of a more of a fusion of really adding a sort of a very strong design sensibility, I suppose, is what's missing. Although one can say there's a drama to some freeways, but it's true overseas, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's possible to make this double decker thing might look really great. And in general, I think that with just a little bit of attention, most freeways could look a lot better. And obviously, there's some examples of amazing road transport structures, like the obviously Golden Gate Bridge. The work that's recently been done with the Bay Bridge, I think it looks really cool with the lights. I don't know if people have seen that, but it looks awesome. Yes, I think like, a little bit of attention can go a long way to improving the aesthetics of freeways and bridges and overpasses like that.
You're obviously a very optimistic person who's got great belief in your ideas. But along the way, there have been some bumps in the road, and there's been some challenges, and there's been a lot of scrutiny. Scrutiny from the press, scrutiny from the stock market, scrutiny from people who are waiting for their cars. How does that impact the work of inventing, and perfecting the product? Is sort of these kind of, episodes like the run-in with the New York Times. So does that sharpen your arguments, or is it kind of a drag? Is it something that gets in the way?
It definitely does get in the way. I think sometimes people are under the impression that if you're CEO that like you can actually just do the fun stuff, but actually what being CEO means is at least if you take your job seriously and care about the outcome of the company, it means you get a distillation of the worst problems in the company. So all the things that people couldn't solve before they got to you, that's what comes to your desk, and it's usually a lot of really not fun stuff to deal with. Yeah, it's not, you know, yeah. It's not like, you know, people sort of think, well, if I was CEO, I'd like to award myself a bunch of vacation and just only do fun things. It doesn't work like that if you want the company to be healthy. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. But it definitely gets, like, the things that I like to do, I'll work on engineering, I'll work on design-related issues, try to make the product better. But a huge amount of time has to, unfortunately, go towards dealing with things that are either that I really don't have a desire to work on, and often that are not really my forte. So I try to do as good a job as possible, but it's not really something that I like to do or want to do.
So Mars seems really attractive at times. And I want to conclude, because now it is time to throw over to the floor. But we did promise on our invite that we would find out what it is that appeals to you about being on Mars.
Well, I think Mars is the only candidate for us to become a true multi-planet civilization in the solar system. Because the moon is close, but it's quite barren. It's very small. It doesn't have an atmosphere. Only rotates every 28 days. It's kind of like analogous to the Arctic. There's a reason why the United States was not created in the Arctic. It's close to Europe, but it sucks. I don't know whether it's like hardly anyone lives there. So Mars is further away, but it's something that's capable of handling a planet-class civilization. And the next best thing would have to be, you'd have to go to, like, the moon to Jupiter or something, which is way, way harder. So it's really it's not the I think it's not just a choice; it's the only choice for becoming multiplanetary. And the risk of repeating a lame joke, I mean, it is a fixer-upper of a planet.
It's a really good freeway.
Yeah. I mean, it needs some work, you know. But we could make it like Earth over time. We could terraform it and make it like Earth. So that's the reason I think Mars is the right subject for us.